My name is Clara Whitmore, 34 years old. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon-spiced apples drifted through my parents' house as if the air itself were trying too hard to promise warmth. I'd told my kids, Ben, 12, and Sophie, 9, to behave, to smile, to pretend this was a normal Thanksgiving. For the first hour, it almost was. Dad had greeted us with a stiff hug. Mom offered coffee in the polite, brittle tone she reserved for people she'd rather not see, but had to. I told myself it was fine, that maybe this year would be different. Then the front door opened and everything tilted. "Emily!" Mom cried, rushing forward. My sister swept in from Switzerland like an arrival scene in a movie. Tailored coat, foreign accent, softened by time, two immaculate children in tow. It had been 7 years, but to them she was still the sun. "Look at you," Mom gushed. "You've done so well for yourself." Dad's voice followed, booming with pride. "A home in Geneva, brilliant job, gifted kids, all set, not like some people." He didn't need to say my name. I laughed under my breath, low enough that only the coffee cup in my hand could hear. Ben glanced at me, sensing it, that small sting adults try to hide, but kids always see. At dinner, the table looked like a magazine spread. Everything perfect, except the silence when I tried to speak. "Ben made the soccer team," I said lightly. Mom's smile tightened. "That's nice, dear. Did you know Lily's been invited to a soccer camp in Barcelona? Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Sophie looked down at her plate. I squeezed her hand under the table. Every word that followed felt like a comparison disguised as conversation. Every laugh, an echo of my exclusion. By dessert, my pulse matched the ticking clock above the fireplace. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Clara," he said, in the tone that used to precede punishments when I was 12. "We've been talking, and we think it's best if you leave." The fork froze halfway to my mouth. "I'm sorry, what?" He gestured vaguely toward Emily's children. "We just don't want certain influences around them today, you understand. We're trying to keep things positive." Positive, like Exile could ever be positive. Mom wouldn't even meet my eyes. "Just go, Clara, don't make a scene." Ben's chair scraped the floor. "Grandpa, it's fine," I cut in quietly. My voice sounded strange, calm, almost gentle. "If that's how you feel, I'll go. But from now on, don't expect my help anymore." Dad frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means the bills, the electricity, the internet, the joint account, all of it." He scoffed. "We don't need your charity." "Good," I said. "Then you'll be fine." I gathered my kids, our coats, and our dignity. The November cold slapped my cheeks as we stepped outside, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. In the car, no one spoke for a while. The streetlights flashed across the windshield like slow heartbeats. Sophie's voice came small from the back seat. "Are we going back for dessert?" "No, honey," I said, eyes on the road. "We're not going back." When we got home, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I went straight to my desk, opened my laptop, and began unplugging everything that tethered me to them. Click, automatic payments canceled. Click, joint account emptied. Click, electricity, internet, insurance, all reassigned. Each click felt like cutting another invisible string that had bound me for years. For so long, I'd told myself that paying their bills was love, that approval could be bought in installments. But that night, in the glow of my monitor, I finally understood. It had never been love. It had been permission to exist in their world. And now, that permission was revoked on both sides. As I turned off the lights, the house fell into a silence so complete it almost sounded like peace. 2 weeks passed without a single word from my parents. No calls, no texts, not even one of Mom's backhanded messages that started with, "Hope you're doing well," and ended with, "We're disappointed in your choices." It was strangely quiet, peaceful even. Then, one Monday morning, as I sat in my car after dropping Ben and Sophie off at school, my phone buzzed. "Emily." I stared at the screen for a long second before answering. "Clara," she said, her voice lower than usual, almost trembling. "Can you talk?" My pulse picked up. "Sure, what's wrong?" "I didn't know they were going to kick you out like that," she blurted. "I swear, I wasn't part of it." I let out a dry laugh. "Right, because you've never been part of anything they do, have you?" She went quiet. I could hear her breathing, slow and uneven. "That's not why I called. Something's going on with Mom and Dad." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "They've been calling me nonstop, asking for money." A bitter smile touched my lips. "That sounds familiar." "I know," she said quickly. But Clara, I can't help them. I don't have it. For a moment, I thought she was joking. Emily, the sister with the Geneva townhouse, the private school kids, the perfect LinkedIn life, was saying she couldn't afford it. Come on, Em, you've got everything, I said softly. There was a pause, then her voice cracked. Not anymore. Something in her tone made me sit up. What happened? My husband, we're separating, she said finally. He's been draining our accounts for months. I didn't realize how bad it was until recently. Clara, I'm in debt. I can't get out of it. For a long moment, I said nothing. I just listened to the static hum between us. Emily, the golden child who'd once lectured me about financial discipline, was unraveling. Wow, I murmured. Didn't see that coming. I know how it sounds, she said quickly, but I didn't call for pity. I just thought you should know. Mom and Dad aren't doing well either. They won't admit it, but they need help. Yeah, well, I replied. They didn't seem too interested in my help when they told me to leave. I get it, she whispered. They were horrible to you, but they're still our parents. That word, our, hung between us, heavier than either of us wanted to carry. Part of me wanted to end the call right there, to tell her she'd made her choices just like they had. But another part, the small, stubborn piece that still wanted approval, kept me on the line. Let me think about it, I said finally. Thank you, she whispered. And Clara, I'm sorry for everything. The line went dead, but the echo of her voice stayed. I sat in the car for a long time after, watching parents hurry their kids into school, thinking how ironic it all was. The sister who'd always had everything now had nothing. The parents who'd worshipped her were crumbling. That night, after tucking Ben and Sophie into bed, I opened my old photo album, the one with yellowed pages and corners curling from time. There we were, two little girls on a swing set, Emily's dress spotless, mine grass-stained and wrinkled, Mom's handwriting underneath, my perfect girls. But only one of us had been treated like she was perfect. I traced the picture with my fingertip and wondered when we'd stopped being sisters and started being rivals. Now fate had flipped the script. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Something about Emily's story didn't add up. She said her husband drained their accounts, but the way she'd whispered it, the way she avoided details, sounded like there was more. I just didn't know yet how deep that truth would cut. 3 more weeks slipped by, quiet but heavy, like waiting for thunder that never comes. Then one evening, as I was sorting laundry and pretending life was normal, my phone buzzed again. Dad. I almost didn't answer. My thumb hovered over the screen long enough for it to stop ringing. But then, on the second try, something in me gave in. Hello? There was a long sigh on the other end. Clara, we need to talk. I said nothing. It's been a rough few weeks, he continued, his voice lower, thinner. Your mother and I might have said things we didn't mean. I almost laughed. Might have? Really? Which part? Calling me a loser or kicking me out in front of my kids? He exhaled. Don't do this, Clara, please. Then why are you calling? He hesitated. It's about Emily. That got my attention. What about her? She stole from us. The room seemed to shrink. I'm sorry, what? She drained our savings, he said, voice trembling. Everything we had left. We think she's gone back to Europe. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the hum of the dryer and the faint tick of the kitchen clock. You're saying the daughter you practically worshipped just robbed you and ran? I asked flatly. She said she needed help with her debts. We gave her access to the accounts. Next thing we knew, the money was gone. I leaned against the counter, pressing my palm to my forehead. So now you want me to fix it? That's not what It's exactly what you're doing, Dad. You didn't call because you missed me. You called because your favorite made a mess and you need a cleanup crew. Silence. Then, softly, we're in trouble, Clara. The mortgage is overdue. The utilities are behind. We don't know what to do. For years, I would have rushed in, sent money, solved it, told myself it was love. But now, all I felt was irony, and maybe, beneath it, pity. You really think I'm going to swoop in and save you after everything you said? I asked. I'm not asking you to save us, he said quietly. Just help us figure it out. I closed my eyes. Somewhere down the hall, Ben's laughter echoed faintly from his room. The sound reminded me who I was responsible for and who I wasn't. Fine, I said at last. I'll think about it. But I'm not promising anything. Thank you, sweetheart, he said, relief softening his tone. We appreciate it. The word sweetheart made me flinch. It was the same word he'd used when I was little, before the hierarchy of love in our family had hardened into law. After I hung up, I just stood there for a while, phone still in my hand. Emily stealing? It didn't fit. She could be selfish, yes, but not reckless, not desperate, unless everything she'd said on the phone was true. I sat down, opened my laptop, and searched her name. Her social media accounts had gone quiet. The last post, over a month ago, was a blurry photo of her kids in a park, captioned, "Sunlight after storms." Storms, maybe she wasn't lying after all. Still, something about the whole thing felt off. If she'd really run away, why hadn't she taken the kids? The thought wouldn't leave me. I needed to know for sure. So I reached out to Carla, one of Emily's old college friends who still lived nearby. "Carla, it's Clara Whitmore," I said when she picked up. "Have you heard from Emily lately?" Carla laughed softly. "Not much. Last I heard, things were rough. Her husband cheated on her with some coworker. Total scandal." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Anything else?" "Yeah," Carla added. "She borrowed a ton of money for investments that tanked. People say she's in deep with debt collectors. I think she's lying low. Maybe back at that lake house your parents own." The lake house. A small property 2 hours away that our parents almost never used. It was quiet, remote, perfect for hiding. That night, as I packed an overnight bag and told Ben and Sophie we were taking a short road trip, I felt the old ache of worry mixing with something new, determination. I didn't know whether Emily was a thief or a victim, but I knew I needed the truth. And if my family's lies had finally started collapsing, I was going to be there to see what rose from the rubble. The drive to the lake house took just under 2 hours, but the silence made it feel longer. Ben and Sophie played quietly in the back seat, sensing that this wasn't really a trip. It was something else. When we finally turned down the gravel road leading to the property, my stomach tightened. The lake shimmered in the distance, pale and glassy, under the winter sun. Everything looked the same, and yet it didn't. Then I saw it, a car in the driveway. Emily's car. I parked beside it, put the gear in park, and turned to the kids. "Stay here, okay? Lock the doors. I'll be right back." Ben opened his mouth to argue, but one look at my face stopped him. The house looked half asleep, curtains drawn, mailbox stuffed, a faint mustiness creeping through the air as I stepped onto the porch. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Footsteps shuffled inside. The door cracked open just enough for a familiar voice to spill through. "Clara?" Emily's face appeared in the gap, tired, pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "Can I come in?" I asked. For a moment, she looked like she might shut the door. Then she sighed and stepped aside. The inside hit me like a confession. Clothes draped over chairs, coffee cups stacked by the sink, papers scattered across the dining table, bank statements, overdue notices, something that looked suspiciously like a foreclosure letter. "I didn't steal from them," she said before I could even speak. "Dad says otherwise." "They gave me access to the account," she snapped, then deflated. "I told them I needed help paying off some debts. They agreed, but when things got worse, they panicked and accused me of stealing." I crossed my arms, taking her in. The woman who'd always seemed flawless now looked painfully human. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd think the worst too," she said quietly. "Everyone always expects me to have it together. I didn't want you to see me like this." I studied her face. For the first time in years, I saw not the golden child, but my sister. Just lost. "So what's your plan?" I asked. "Run back to Europe and hope nobody notices?" "I'm not running," she said, her voice hardening. "I just needed space to breathe, to figure things out. I was going to pay them back once I could, but now they're calling me a thief." I sank onto the edge of the couch. "You really messed up, Em." "I know," she said. "But you don't understand what it's like being the favorite. They build you up so high that when you fall, there's no one left to catch you." The words stopped me cold. "You think I don't get that?" I asked quietly. "I've been down there my whole life, looking up at you." We locked eyes across the room. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then something between us, something that had been fractured since childhood, shifted. "I guess we both lost, huh?" Emily said softly. "Maybe," I replied, "but at least now we know what it's like on the other side." She laughed, a small, tired sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Mom and Dad won't listen to me anymore. They just keep screaming. I don't even know where to start." "Start by facing them," I said. "Tell them the truth. I'm not cleaning up your mess, but I'll stand beside you when you do." She looked up, surprised. "You'd do that?" "Don't make me regret it." The next morning, we drove back to town. Emily walked up to our parents' door alone, clutching a folder of paperwork and shaking like a teenager before a confession. I stayed in the car with Ben and Sophie, watching from the driveway. An hour passed before she came back out. Her face looked lighter somehow, though her eyes were red. "How'd it go?" I asked. They're upset, she said. But I told them everything. I told them I can't bail them out anymore, that I'm done pretending I'm perfect just to make them proud. I nodded slowly. Good. They tried to guilt me, she added, voice trembling. Said they sacrificed everything for us. But I told them I'm done carrying that debt too. For a long while, we just sat there in silence. Then she turned to me. I'm going back to Europe, she said quietly. I need a fresh start. I'll take the kids, find work, rebuild. I wanted to say something sharp, something like, of course you'll leave again, but the words never came. Instead, I just nodded. I hope it works out, I said finally. She gave me a weak smile. You too, Clara. And thank you for not giving up on me. I watched her drive away, taillights disappearing through the trees. Something inside me loosened. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but maybe it was understanding. I turned to see Ben watching me from the back seat. You okay, Mom? He asked. Yeah, I said quietly. I think I finally am. Winter bled into spring before I realized how long it had been since I'd heard from any of them. Emily's messages stopped a few weeks after she left for Europe, short, polite updates that dwindled into silence. My parents never called again, at least not directly. Instead, they left voicemails. Clara, the mortgage is overdue again. Your mother's medical bills are piling up. Could you at least help with the electric? Each message sounded smaller than the last. Desperation replacing pride, fear replacing judgment. I didn't delete them. I just didn't call back. It wasn't out of cruelty. It was peace. For the first time in years, my life wasn't orbiting theirs. The guilt that used to anchor me had dissolved. I was free, and I didn't need permission to exist anymore. Ben and Sophie felt it too. Our home grew lighter, warmer. We built our own holidays, our own small rituals stitched together from laughter and imperfection. That next Thanksgiving, I roasted a chicken instead of a turkey. Sophie made the mashed potatoes. Ben handled the music. We toasted with sparkling cider, just the three of us. Should we invite Grandma and Grandpa next year? Sophie asked, halfway through dinner. I looked at her, so gentle, so full of forgiveness that I almost envied her. Maybe someday, I said softly, but not yet. After dinner, I stood at the window while they washed dishes, watching snow drift past the glass. Across the street, lights twinkled in other people's homes, families laughing, doors open, everything I used to think I wanted. But in our small kitchen, with music and mismatched plates, and two kids who still believed love didn't need to be earned, I realized I already had everything I'd been chasing. My parents eventually found their way. Pride can't pay bills, and desperation can teach humility faster than sermons ever could. Dad sold one of his properties. Mom learned to live within her means. They survived without me, just like I'd always known they could. And me? I didn't need to make a scene. I didn't need to slam doors or write long explanations. My revenge was silence. Not the kind born of anger, but the kind that comes when the storm finally passes and all that's left is calm. Because sometimes the loudest way to reclaim your power is to say nothing at all,